Pearl Harbor, the attack that shocked the world. On the morning of December 7th, 1941, the United States was suddenly and violently drawn into World War II when the Imperial Japanese Navy launched a devastating surprise attack on the American naval base at Pearl Harbor, located in Hawaii. The attack shocked the nation, killed thousands, and permanently changed the course of global history. Background to the attack. By the late 1930s, Japan had become an aggressive imperial power in Asia. It had invaded China and sought to dominate the Pacific region. The United States strongly opposed Japan's expansion and responded by cutting off vital supplies, including oil, steel, and other resources. Japan depended heavily on these materials, especially oil, to power its military. Faced with economic pressure and diplomatic failure, Japan's leaders believed war with the United States was unavoidable. They decided to strike first, hoping to cripple the U.S. Navy and gain control over Southeast Asia and the Pacific. Why Pearl Harbor was targeted? Pearl Harbor was the home of the U.S. Pacific Fleet. Located in Hawaii, it was the key base that protected American interests in the Pacific. If Japan could destroy the fleet, the United States would be unable to interfere with Japanese expansion for many months. The Japanese planned a surprise attack to destroy battleships, aircraft carriers, and airfields before the Americans could respond. The attack begins. At 7:55 a.m. on December 7th, Japanese planes appeared in the skies over Pearl Harbor. In two waves, more than 350 aircraft bombed and torpedoed ships and airfields. American forces were caught completely off guard. Many sailors were still sleeping or eating breakfast when explosions rocked the harbor. Battleships burned, planes were destroyed on the ground, and chaos filled the base. Some of the worst damage included USS Arizona exploding and sinking, killing over 1,100 sailors, USS Oklahoma capsizing, 8 battleships damaged or destroyed, nearly 200 American aircraft destroyed, loss of life and destruction. The attack lasted less than 2 hours, but its impact was enormous. 2,403 Americans were killed, over 1,000 were wounded, dozens of ships and aircraft were destroyed or damaged. Japan lost fewer than 100 men, making the attack extremely successful from a military perspective. America enters World War II. The next day, December 8, 1941, President Franklin D. Roosevelt addressed Congress. He called December 7th, a date which will live in infamy. Congress quickly declared war on Japan. Days later, Germany and Italy declared war on the United States. The U.S. was now fully involved in World War II, turning the conflict into a truly global war. Long-term impact. The Pearl Harbor attack united Americans like never before. Millions volunteered for military service, and American factories began producing weapons, ships, and aircraft at an incredible pace. Although the attack was devastating, it failed to destroy American aircraft carriers, which were not in the harbor at the time. These carriers would later play a critical role in defeating Japan. The attack also led to the eventual defeat of Japan in 1945 and the end of World War II. Conclusion. Pearl Harbor remains one of the most important events in world history. It marked the moment when the United States entered World War II and helped determine the future of the modern world. The bravery of those who fought and died that day is still remembered, and Pearl Harbor stands as a powerful reminder of the cost of war and the importance of peace. Aftermath of the Pearl Harbor attack. In the days following the attack, the United States was in shock and mourning. Newspapers across the country carried photographs of burning ships and wrecked aircraft. Families waited anxiously for news of loved ones stationed in Hawaii. Yet alongside grief, there was also a powerful sense of unity and determination. Americans were no longer divided about entering the war. They were ready to fight. Military leaders immediately began assessing the damage. Although many ships were sunk or damaged, a surprising number were repaired and returned to service within months. The shipyards at Pearl Harbor worked around the clock, proving that the attack had not permanently crippled the U.S. Navy as Japan had hoped. Japanese reaction. In Japan, the attack was first celebrated as a great victory. Military leaders believed they had dealt the United States a crushing blow. However, some Japanese officers quietly feared that they had awakened a powerful enemy. Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, who planned the attack, is often quoted as saying, "I fear all we have done is to awaken a sleeping giant and fill him with a terrible resolve." Japan soon began its expansion across the Pacific, capturing places such as the Philippines, Guam, Hong Kong, and Singapore. For a short time, it seemed that Japan was unstoppable. How Pearl Harbor changed warfare. The attack on Pearl Harbor marked a turning point in naval warfare. It showed that aircraft carriers and airplanes were now more important than battleships. The Japanese had used planes launched from carriers hundreds of miles away, proving that a nation could strike without warning. This lesson reshaped military strategies around the world and influenced how wars would be fought for decades. The road to victory. Within 6 months of Pearl Harbor, the U.S. Navy achieved a major victory against Japan at the Battle of Midway, sinking 4 Japanese aircraft carriers. This battle turned the tide of the war in the Pacific. Over the next several years, American and Allied forces pushed Japan back island by island. The war finally ended in August 1945 after the atomic bombs were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, leading to Japan's surrender. Remembering Pearl Harbor today, Pearl Harbor is a national memorial. The USS Arizona Memorial stands over the sunken ship where more than 1,100 sailors lost their lives. Visitors from around the world come to honor those who died and to learn about the event that changed history. Heroes of Pearl Harbor. Although the attack was sudden and overwhelming, many American sailors and pilots showed extraordinary bravery. Some rushed to their battle stations under heavy fire. Others worked desperately to rescue trapped men from sinking ships. One famous hero was Dory Miller, a cook aboard the USS West Virginia. Even though he had no formal weapons training, he took control of a machine gun and fired at attacking planes, helping defend the ship. His courage made him the first African-American sailor to receive the Navy Cross. Nurses, doctors, and medics also worked nonstop, treating the wounded and saving countless lives despite the chaos around them. Mistakes and missed warnings. After the war, investigations revealed that warning signs had been missed. Radar operators detected incoming planes, but the reports were misunderstood. Intelligence messages hinted at danger, but no one expected an attack on Hawaii. These mistakes led the U.S. government to improve military communication and intelligence systems, helping prevent future surprise attacks. Impact on American society. The Pearl Harbor attack changed everyday life in America. Factories shifted to making weapons, airplanes, and ships. Women entered the workforce in large numbers, symbolized by Rosie the Riveter. However, fear also led to injustice. Over 110,000 Japanese Americans were forced into internment camps, even though most were loyal U.S. citizens. This remains one of the darkest chapters in American history. A lasting legacy. Pearl Harbor is not just remembered as a military event, but as a moment that changed the direction of the 20th century. It showed how quickly peace can be shattered and how unity and courage can rise from tragedy. Lessons from Pearl Harbor. The attack on Pearl Harbor taught the world many powerful lessons. One of the most important was the danger of being unprepared. The United States realized that even a strong nation could be caught off guard if it failed to stay alert and ready. It also showed the importance of intelligence, communication, and cooperation between military branches. These lessons help shape modern defense systems and strategies used by countries today. Pearl Harbor in world history. Pearl Harbor changed not only American history, but world history. After the U.S. entered World War II, the balance of power shifted. American troops and resources helped defeat both Nazi Germany and Imperial Japan, leading to the end of the deadliest war in human history. The war also led to the creation of international organizations like the United Nations, formed to prevent future global conflicts. Why Pearl Harbor is still remembered. Every year on December 7th, the United States honors the victims of Pearl Harbor. Survivors, families, and military leaders gather in Hawaii to remember the fallen. Schools teach about the attack so future generations understand its importance. Pearl Harbor reminds us of the cost of war, the value of peace, and the courage of ordinary people in extraordinary times. Final conclusion. The attack on Pearl Harbor was more than a military strike. It was a moment that reshaped the world. It brought the United States into World War II, changed how wars were fought, and demonstrated the strength of a nation when it stands united. Even today, Pearl Harbor stands as a symbol of sacrifice, resilience, and the enduring hope that humanity can learn from the past to build a better future. The global political shockwave, Pearl Harbor did not just shake America, it shook the entire world. Before December 7, 1941, World War II was mainly centered in Europe and Asia, but the United States had remained officially neutral. Once America entered the war, the conflict became truly global. How the U.S. military was rebuilt. After Pearl Harbor, America went through the largest military expansion in history. Shipyards built new aircraft carriers and battleships. Factories produced thousands of planes, tanks, guns, and ships. Between 1941 and 1945, over 300,000 aircraft were built. Nearly 100,000 ships were produced. Millions of soldiers were trained. The U.S. Navy that Japan tried to destroy became the most powerful naval force in the world. The intelligence revolution. One of the biggest lessons of Pearl Harbor was the failure of intelligence. After the attack, the U.S. created new systems to collect, analyze, and share military information. This led to better radar systems, stronger code breaking, improved spy networks. These advances helped the U.S. win major battles later in the war, especially at Midway, where Japanese plans were secretly decoded. Life in Hawaii. After the attack, Hawaii was placed under martial law. Soldiers patrolled the streets. Blackouts were enforced at night. Civilians carried gas masks and prepared for more attacks that never came. People lived in fear, but they also helped the war effort by building defenses, working in shipyards, and supporting the military. Japan's strategic failure. Although Japan succeeded in the attack, it made a critical mistake. It failed to destroy U.S. aircraft carriers, fuel storage tanks, repair facilities. These allowed the U.S. Navy to recover quickly. Instead of weakening America, Pearl Harbor united it and gave it a powerful reason to fight. Pearl Harbor's place in modern memory today. Pearl Harbor stands as a warning to the world. It shows what happens when diplomacy fails and war begins. The memorials remind us that peace is fragile and must be protected. The attack also reminds humanity that even the greatest tragedies can lead to strength, unity, and hope. How Pearl Harbor shaped the modern U.S. military. After Pearl Harbor, the United States realized it needed to be prepared for sudden global threats. This led to the creation of a permanent military presence around the world. Before 1941, the U.S. avoided foreign bases, but afterward it built military bases across Europe, Asia, and the Pacific. This new strategy helped protect allies and prevent surprise attacks. Today, American military bases in places like Japan, South Korea, and Hawaii exist largely because of lessons learned from Pearl Harbor. Birth of American superpower status. Before World War II, the United States was powerful, but not yet the world's leader. After Pearl Harbor and the war that followed, the U.S. emerged as a superpower alongside the Soviet Union. American technology, industry, and military strength reshaped the global economy. Institutions like the World Bank, International Monetary Fund, IMF, and United Nations were created with strong U.S. involvement to prevent another global war. Pearl Harbor in culture and education. The attack has been remembered through books, films, museums, history, textbooks, movies like Torah, and Pearl Harbor helped bring the story to new generations. Schools teach Pearl Harbor not just as history, but as a lesson about vigilance, peace, and responsibility. Japan and the path to peace. After World War II, Japan transformed from a military empire into a peaceful nation. It adopted a new constitution that rejected war and focused on democracy. Today, Japan and the United States are close allies. Former enemies now work together for peace, one of the most powerful examples of how nations can change after tragedy. Why Pearl Harbor still matters. Pearl Harbor remains a symbol of how quickly peace can disappear. It teaches governments to stay alert, cooperate internationally, and avoid misunderstandings that can lead to war. The memory of December 7, 1941, continues to warn the world. History must be remembered so it is not repeated. Pearl Harbor and intelligence failures. One of the greatest tragedies of Pearl Harbor was that the attack might have been prevented. Before December 7th, the U.S. had broken parts of Japan's secret diplomatic codes. Messages showed that Japan was preparing for war, but they did not clearly mention Pearl Harbor. Important warnings were delayed, misunderstood, or ignored. Radar operators even detected Japanese planes, but officers thought they were American aircraft. This failure led to major changes in how military intelligence works today, including constant monitoring and faster decision-making systems. Civil defense and homeland security. After Pearl Harbor, Americans realized that even their homeland was vulnerable. This led to the creation of air raid drills, blackout systems, and civil defense programs. Cities prepared for possible attacks, and civilians learned emergency procedures. These early systems eventually evolved into modern homeland security and emergency response organizations, which still protect countries from threats today. Veterans and survivors. Thousands of Pearl Harbor survivors lived long lives after the war. Many returned every year to Hawaii to honor fallen comrades. Their stories became living history, reminding people that behind every war statistic is a human life. As time passes, fewer survivors remain, making education and remembrance even more important. The meaning of December 7th. Just as 9/11 became a symbol of tragedy in modern times, December 7th became a symbol of surprise attack and national awakening. It represents the moment when America was forced to face a dangerous world. Pearl Harbor in the 21st century. In today's world of cyber warfare, terrorism, and global tension, Pearl Harbor still offers a lesson. No nation can afford to be complacent. The attack reminds us that preparation, cooperation, and diplomacy are the keys to peace. Pearl Harbor and the birth of the security state. After 1941, the United States changed how it thought about national security. The government created permanent institutions to prevent another surprise attack. These included a stronger Department of Defense, the Central Intelligence Agency, CIA, the National Security Council. These organizations exist today largely because Pearl Harbor proved how dangerous poor intelligence and slow communication could be. Technology revolution. After the attack, the fear created by Pearl Harbor pushed America to invest heavily in science and technology. This led to radar improvements, jet aircraft missile systems, nuclear energy computer-based code breaking. Many modern technologies, including satellites and the internet, trace their origins to wartime research started after Pearl Harbor. Psychological impact on the American people. Pearl Harbor changed how Americans viewed the world. Before 1941, many believed the oceans would protect the U.S. After the attack, that belief vanished. People became more alert, patriotic, and willing to sacrifice. Families rationed food and fuel. Children collected scrap metal. Everyone felt they were part of the war effort. How Pearl Harbor changed global power. The attack indirectly led to the fall of European colonial empires. As America became stronger, old empires like Britain and France weakened. This allowed many nations in Asia and Africa to gain independence after the war. Thus, Pearl Harbor helped reshape the entire global order, from enemies to allies. Perhaps the most remarkable result of Pearl Harbor is what came after. Japan and the United States, once bitter enemies, are now close allies. Their cooperation helps keep peace in the Pacific. This shows that even the deepest wounds of history can heal. Pearl Harbor's eternal message. The ultimate lesson of Pearl Harbor is clear. Peace must be protected and history must be remembered. Forgetting the past makes the future more dangerous. Historical debates about Pearl Harbor. Even decades later, historians still debate important questions about Pearl Harbor. Some scholars argue that U.S. leaders knew an attack was coming, but did not know where it would occur. Others believe the warning signs were too vague to justify moving the fleet. What is certain is that communication failures, poor coordination, and human error all played a role. These debates matter because they help modern governments improve crisis decision-making. Was Pearl Harbor a mistake for Japan? From a long-term perspective, Pearl Harbor was a strategic disaster for Japan. While it won a short-term victory, it forced the United States into total war. America's industrial power was far greater than Japan's. Japan destroyed ships, but it created an enemy it could never defeat. How Pearl Harbor is taught today. Pearl Harbor is taught not just as a battle, but as a warning. Military academies study it to learn about surprise attacks, intelligence failure, strategic miscalculation. Schools teach it as a moment when democracy was attacked and defended. Pearl Harbor and modern threats. In today's world, attacks may come not by airplanes, but by cyber warfare, missiles, or terrorism. The lesson of Pearl Harbor still applies. Nations must remain alert and cooperative. Why this story never ends. Pearl Harbor is not just history, it is a living lesson. Every generation must learn it again, because peace depends on understanding how war begins. Voices from December 7, 1941. Many survivors described the attack as a moment of complete disbelief. Sailors recalled seeing the sky filled with enemy planes marked with the red rising sun. Explosions shook the ground. Thick black smoke covered the harbor. Some men jumped into burning oil-covered water to escape sinking ships. Others stayed at their posts, even knowing they might not survive. These personal stories remind us that Pearl Harbor was not just history. It was a moment of fear, courage, and sacrifice for thousands of real people. Families and the pain of loss. Across America, families waited for telegrams that would bring either relief or heartbreak. Thousands of parents, wives, and children learned that their loved ones had died far